electronic device. If you are listening your phone, if you're listening later on Spotify or on Apple Podcast, one of the numerous methods by which you can watch our show anywhere across the I Love CVille network. Be sure to like and share, send us any comments, questions. We're going to have Nicholas Earpy on today. He's the CMO and, I don't want to call him chief financial planner, but a financial planner at Emergent Financial Services. I got Michael here with me.
Excited to be here.
So it's the younger Earpies are here on Today Mañana this morning.
The average age of the Earpies just dropped by, 30, 40 years?
Oh.
Well, it's some simple math, Alex.
Xavier is working hard, and he is on a business trip today. So instead, we are here to share some. We'll be talking some finance. We'll be talking some Days of Rosé Festival. There's a lot of fun things for us to talk about. Maybe talk about a little UVA baseball. Assuming Jeff didn't jinx them when we had him on the show.
Well, they bounced back. Yesterday?
They bounced back on Tuesday.
Yeah,
they did bounce back and crushed Richmond, which they were supposed to do. So that was good to see. That was certainly a positive there. But yeah, so we got a lot of stuff we're going to cover this morning. We're going to have some finance topics. We'll talk a little bit about Days of Rosé Festival at Castle.
So that's not finance
which we would
topic.
like you to attend. No, yes, there's some finance, some Days of Rosé, lots of different things that we can discuss on Today Mañana this morning. But like I said, be sure. I think we've already got some people liking the show this morning. Yeah, Greer Kelly Attenbach liking the show this morning. I think I saw Caravello Vincenzo from Italy liking the show, or liking the promo of the show this morning. So we got some fans already joining us. So be sure to like, share, comment, question, anything you want to do. You can ask us. If you want to tell us how glad you are that Xavier's not here. If you want to tell us how sad you are,
I think everyone's
that
sad.
Xavier not here.
He was here last week, though, wasn't he?
We had 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks.
Back-to-back weeks. Okay, that's
I had back-to-back weeks with Xavier, so that was fun as always. So we got a lot to cover. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Michael. We're very excited to have you joining us this morning on what is essentially a summer morning.
Day. Yeah.
We're in summer.
It feels like, we had a very warm winter, and it feels like, I guess, spring came and just said, nah, I'm taking the year off. Summer can have its fun. Because, wow. Last week we had 89 degree days.
Yesterday was 80. Today's going to be 90.
So same with tomorrow. So yeah. And thankfully, we were last week, I guess maybe because it was the first week we were turning on the air condition, they found out that one of the parts of our air conditioning unit wasn't working. So we were getting our air conditioned. Boy, I'm telling you, it felt like we were back in maybe the 40s or 50s. We had the windows open, the fans going, and it was hot. A couple of times it hit 86 inside the office. We were like, man.
Oh boy!
But thankfully they came and they fixed the air condition, so we're nice and cool.
The maintenance people showing up at last to fix that, because we are good at financial advice. We are not handymen.
Well, listen, air conditioning units are complicated.
Yeah, if you come to us with questions on your air conditioning, we're not going to be able to help you with that. No. So just as a heads up.
We can go into a room and tell you whether it's working or not, but that's about it.
So we're very good.
It's hot. It's not working.
Exactly. So that we've got covered. Just the first couple of shout-outs. Love being here on the I Love CVille Network set. We got Judah Whittaker behind the camera, making us all look good, which really, for today, that's a tough task, so we really appreciate it.
Don't sell yourself short. You get married in a few weeks. Now you got to be
That's
pumping
true.
yourself
my
up.
My fiance thinks I'm very handsome,
See,
so she says that's why she watches the show, just to look at me.
Oh.
So, but we got, of course, a couple of thank yous to Emergent Financial Services for being our presenter. Of course, we love partnering with our good friends Miguel and Chick at Credit Serious Insurance. Of course, our friend Matthias Yon of Matthias Yon Realty, Castle Hill Cider, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So just appreciate them for Adelante, the premier Latino networking group here in Charlottesville, Virginia. So we got a lot to cover. We're going to be joined very shortly by Nicholas Erpe, the CMO of Emergent Financial Services, to talk a number of things. But I guess UVA baseball bouncing back a little bit.
I know. I mean, we definitely wanted to touch on that a little bit. Yeah. I mean, the team's playing very well. I don't know. So I saw their record this morning was 32-6.
Yeah, it's an impressive record.
Yeah, and it's 12-6 in the conference, which is very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's some good. I mean, we won series against ranked teams. Basically, we've beaten all the ranked teams.
Did we sweep Miami, or did we?
We swept Miami. So strangely enough, right, our series wins are against all the ranked teams. So we won series against UNC, which was ranked. We won against NC State, which was ranked. We won against Miami, which was ranked. Mm-hmm. Funnily enough, our 2 series losses were to away at Tech and Pitt at home.
Yeah.
Neither.
Well, Tech's kind of like
Tech's
playing
always
a
tough
because
out.
everyone always motivates themselves with those rivalry games.
Exactly,
and
then
this week at Pittsburgh. Listen, when you lose, you didn't get swept, right? When you lose 2 out of 3, it's one game's the difference between winning the series
and really some close. I mean, we lost 7-5 and 6-4.
Yeah.
So you got some close wins. 7-5, then we even out hit them and lost, which is rare that happens. And then we bounced back, had a nice 8-2 win. 8-4 win on Sunday, and then won 18-something against Richmond on Tuesday. So
I mean, they can certainly score. This is the thing we've noticed about the UVA team this year. They can score.
They can score.
In fact, what's his name? Jake
Geloff.
Jake Geloff. I think he leads the NCAA in RBIs.
I mean, last I checked, he was batting 370 with a bunch of homers. So
I mean, that's pretty impressive to have that many RBIs.
He's had a great season. The pitching doing okay. Better than last year's. We'll just chalk up this weekend as between Jeff and Xavier and I knocking on wood so many times and saying this team's great. They were bound to stumble a little, but now they've bounced back, which we said is the mark of a good team. Can you bounce back if you get kind of punched in the mouth?
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest though. When you have a 32-6 record, there's not many punches in the mouth you've taken on the year.
Exactly. So they've done really well. Just got to keep it going. There's probably a couple more games a couple more home series that I think people can go to. So be sure to check that out. Check the schedule. Sundays, Jeff said, are especially fun. Because you can go and get autographs from the players. Kids can go on the field. Kids are free. Under 18 is free if you have a general admission ticket.
I don't think I'll pass.
Yeah. No, you won't pass. But if you had a kid, you could bring the under 18 for free. And we got a couple. Hope everyone's all right out there. If you can hear the sirens. All right. So I say I'm ready to jump right into it.
Should we bring in our guest?
I mean, as much as it would be enjoyable to have him sit there the whole show and never bring him on, I think
we kind of do this thing. It's we'll keep talking to and we're gonna get to our guest soon, and then we're gonna keep going. And then
you ever watch sometimes on cable news or something, right? They'll keep saying they're gonna get to this guest, but then they don't get to them.
We'll be a minute left. No, in fact, I do more like an SNL skit. We're gonna get to this guest, but first we want to talk about this coverage, and then we'll be oh, unfortunately, we ran out of time. We weren't able to get to our guest.
That would be fun. Yeah. But it'll also be great to get his insight on a number of things. And so we're excited to welcome to the show this morning Nicholas Erpe. He is the CMO and financial planner at Emergent Financial Services. Nick, thanks for joining us this morning.
I thought it actually would have been funny if you just kept going and never brought me on.
Well, if you want, we can have Judah just cut you out right now and we just keep going.
We lost too late now.
Technical difficulties. We lost connection.
Yeah. This connection spotty, bad internet.
Where he is.
Yeah.
But good to have you on. So, I mean, all of us were lucky enough to go to Days of Rose Festival at Castle Hill on Saturday, I believe it was, to celebrate
April 15th.
Michael's birthday.
It was my birthday.
I saw in the news, well, it's a good thing it's your birthday. It kind of spices up the day, because I saw in the news that I forgot that's also when the Titanic sank.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we can add Tats Day Abraham Lincoln's death and the Titanic.
Yeah, but at least it's my birthday. It's also Jackie Robinson Day for baseball, so there's a couple of good things about it.
Well, today's 420, so there's a little something different going on today.
What's going on today?
Oh, you never heard 420? 420 is when everyone smokes weed. I don't know.
I think we can pass on
It's
that.
true, yeah.
Oh, I didn't say it wasn't true. I just Alex and I would not.
Oh,
Hey,
you
Alex,
know
that
that obscure fact.
No, I was told that this morning, but
Oh, interesting.
it's funny.
Interesting. So tell us a little. What
Yeah,
was
you
your-
were there earlier than us, so tell us.
So
tell us
you
about
went
it.
VIP at 11. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts of how you thought the day went.
Well, it was packed. So Days of Rosé, what it was, I think everyone hasn't seen the Today Manana posts or what in advance. It was it was sort of like a celebration of rosé wine. It was envisioned by Matt Harmon, Harmony Wine, who we've had on the show, and he went to Castle Hill Cider, and they decided to put on an event showcasing Virginia Rosé. So there was already, when you get there, you kind of enter through the front, you pick up your ticket, your tag, and they give you one pink poker chip. Mm-hmm. You go through and you get around to where their back lawn is, and there was an entire row of tents, kind of like in a U, of every single winery, or at least every participating winery, giving tastings of their rosé that you could purchase
There were
if you
a lot.
wanted.
There were a decent number.
Yeah, there were at least.
Wine.
I think there were. If
I think there was
count
7 or
them,
8.
There
right? I
were
would
there were
say.
about 8, and then there was Castle Hills Buggy that had Harmony Wine and Castle Hills Wine on
So
it.
maybe 10 total participants,
Yeah,
including
probably,
the
yeah.
host.
Including the host, and then what you would do with the poker chip is vote for your favorite. So it was literally it started at 12. It was 12 to 5. It was hopping right away. Music was going. It wasn't too loud, but it was still enough that like you could hear wherever you were. Mm-hmm. You know, the wineries were, the families were out. There was a lot of
Yeah, so
couples.
little
It was
kids.
mostly They had games, long games for the kids, and they set up the Adirondack chairs perfectly so that people could take a seat if they wanted. There were some food trucks there, Sliced Cake Bar, Blue Ridge Pizza Company, Croby's Urban Vittles, Salty Bottom Blue Oysters, which were delicious. That was
Croby's.
Yeah, we had
Yes,
a
we had-
Croby's smoked chicken sandwich.
Oh,
yeah, it was
that
great.
was
that
so.
sandwich
That
was
was delicious. Yeah.
out of this world. I was sad. I missed when Rob and Shannon from Croby's
I know.
came on. I'm still
Xavier and I
jealous.
were there. Yeah, man.
I am
we would
still
chip-
jealous of that show.
Yeah.
When Xavier tasted
Every
all
time
that
I see
delicious
Rob, I
food.
still mention the they had those like egg rolls, but it was like collard greens and it was so good. And Xavier and I were like, we really wanted to eat it, but it was like sometimes it could be difficult trying to eat something because you're like, I'm on camera, so I don't want to make a mess. Like it's like it's like if I like kind of getting a little napkin, and
A little
just in
bib.
case. Exactly, a little bit.
Yeah, and we love Judah enough that like we would hope he would cut away,
Yeah,
but I
exactly.
think Judah also might zoom in just to make fun of us.
Exactly. I get a little stain, and then Judah zooms in.
He's zooming in on the camera. Yeah.
Shout out Olga Morse. Thanks for watching the
Oh,
show this
hello,
morning. Loving the
Olga.
show. Hola, Olga.
Well, Olga's enjoying herself in Puerto Rico.
It's
And
not-
she must have nice
well,
weather.
It's,
We
it's
got
probably
nice weather.
getting really hot in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
This is probably when it starts to get
Beach
really
weather.
hot in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
But thankfully she's right on the beach in Isabela.
Yeah, she's
so-
probably lounging right now in a chair with a margarita, probably on the little phone watching,
You know,
or on laptop.
Or that,
watching
one of
today.
those
Yeah,
fresh
What are
baked
you
mangoes
drinking,
that she
Olga?
just gets from
Comment in. What are you having?
What do you have this morning?
But yeah, so it was, and then upstairs in the VIP lounge, which was totally worth it for those of you that are like big rosé cider fans. Upstairs they had a Hell's Kitchen chef, Steve Glenn, I believe his name is.
Chef Steve, he was good.
Steve was good. He had a tasting that was supposed to pair each with Harmony Wine and Castle Hill Rosé. And then there was a little talk later on, which you guys had managed to get there for, where Don Whitaker, the head cider maker, has been on the show, and
Talked
Matt
about
Harmon
the
kind of talked a
history,
little
the
bit about
connections.
history of wine, of rosé, the history of cider, kind of meshed them a little bit together. So all in all, it was a great time. There was a little friendly competition right at the end.
Yeah, it was the voting
Very
was super
close.
close. It was
It
like
was.
3-4 chips that separated the winner from the runner-up.
From the runner-ups, I think we're allowed
Would
to
you have
say.
to say
I
the
wasn't saying
winner?
that. So the
Who-
winner was Castle Hill Cider, actually, which was very surprising.
Yes.
because
The
in a
non-wine.
rosé town, I would have
It's a
expected
delicious rosé cider. I have
No,
to
it's
say.
phenomenal. But
Yeah.
like again, part of what we always just what Don and Rob like to highlight is that cider is made the same way as wine, but it's not necessarily like there's not a stigma, because there's not a stigma against cider. It's more like
not
wine is very
viewed the same
elevated.
category
Yes,
as wine.
wine has a very elevated status. It's like the drink of the rich. And obviously that's changing. A part of it is that cider is finding its place too, because the only difference between them is the fruit. It's apple versus grape.
Well, it's interesting. It was a perfect union of Harmony Wine along with Castle Hill Cider, because I feel like Matt from Harmony Wine is trying to take wine and make it approachable and be like, wine doesn't have to be this super fancy thing that you only super rich people go to wineries and sniff and stuff, right? The average person,
They don't drink it; they just
can
sniff
enjoy,
it.
you can enjoy wine at a picnic. You can enjoy wine at a casual setting, right? I think he's trying to sort of make wine more approachable. And Castle Hill is like, we also want to take cider out of that, this is the only drink cider when you're not drinking wine, right? And say, no, you could actually appreciate cider on the same level as what you think of as wine. Cider can be both approachable, but also interesting and be paired with things and be enjoyed as something you can really appreciate the nuances of and taste different ciders.
It can still be a layered drink the same way wine.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the food that was paired was really interesting, because first Chef Steve had made, to pair with, I believe it was Harmony's wine, almost like a little, puff pastry with like corn.
Like corn salsa,
pickled chickpeas, and it was delicious. And then for Castle Hills, which I would say definitely has a more robust flavor, he paired something a little stronger. It was like a little piece of sourdough bread with cured his own ham, which I thought was impressive, and it tasted very good. Yeah. And then there was something else on there. I can't remember. Was it like a little balsamic glaze, or am I?
Glaze, but then also like a little alioli.
Yeah, there was something else in it. It was very layered, and that's also one of the benefits.
And I remember when Alex and I got there for the Castle Hill event, like we're driving up, and we see all these cars, and then we see these two guys with like the vest, and they're like coming in to show you where to park. And we're like, man, this place is packed. Like they even got their own people to show for parking. I mean, that was impressive.
It was a great event. MJ did a great job marketing.
Oh yeah, shout out to MJ.
Josephine and Matt did a great job putting it together.
They were all over.
They were everywhere.
Yeah, they were everywhere.
They were everywhere. We got. I think today Munoz has got some photos of Josephine with her little with the victory
award, with the victory award.
The only caveat was that apparently we got there and everyone's dressed in pink. So apparently there was a pink dress code, which we were not aware of. So I showed up in green.
I had my pink.
You had pink?
I had my
It was reddish. It wasn't rose.
It was red and white.
To be fair, I knew about the dress code. I just don't have any rose colored clothing.
To be fair, I'll be honest. I might not still dressed in pink because I feel awkward dressed in pink.
Pink is not your go-to color.
No, it's not my go-to color.
I drank everything I was drinking was pink. I thought that was good enough.
Yeah.
So.
Very. So it was a great event.
Yeah,
it was
put on. I think everyone should consider it it's a great time of year.
And the beautiful part is, if you're feeling like a lot of fear of missing out right now, you're like, oh dang, the Europeans, gotta stop telling me about this event. I missed it, right? Fear not, because the 231 Fest.
Fear not.
Is on June 10th, which has even more people, even more fun, even more participating people that on that
there will be more
stretch.
Food trucks.
So just more of everything.
More of everything.
You might say.
Yeah.
So it's the biggest event of the year. I believe,
and they have
231 Fest.
Plenty of space, and that's part of it. What it is that there's even areas where if you need a break, you need to get away. I mean, we did it too. We walked down to the water and then came back up.
Yep.
It's
beautiful.
Yeah, you can walk around and just enjoy the peace of being there, and then get back into the energy, the act.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it was a beautiful. So be sure to check out 231 Fest. If you go to castlehillcider.com, you'll find all the details. 231 Fest on June 10th.
June 10th.
June 10th. So it's also Saturday. So mark your calendars. It's going to be a blast. So be sure to check that out if you feel this way. You don't have to feel like you're missing out. You have another opportunity coming up very soon to enjoy some Castle Hill. So it's going to be a blast. So thanks for recapping that for us. Thanks for getting there early.
Yep.
And
that wasn't necessarily a sacrifice on my part. I just had fun a little bit earlier than you guys. That's all.
There you go.
Yeah, but you had like the photo, man. So you're always kind of every once in a while. Well, like Alex and I'll just be sitting back, relax, and watch, and then we see Nick kind of going there trying to get the angles. And
I got to do my
photos.
All the Today Mañana photos. It's really Nick. So
exactly.
I told Dom before he got up to talk. I said, I'm going to orbit you. So just ignore me, because while you're talking, I got to snap some photos.
And he said, no problem, that's easy.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So here we'll talk a little finance today.
Okay.
With you as our guest. We got a couple things I wanted to cover today just so we can chat about. And I think the first one is just kind of your thoughts, both of you. I mean, so we got a lot of people coming in financial planning. Budgeting is, I think, a big key right now because what we're seeing is, obviously with inflation, it gets a little harder. Everything costs more. Your salary is not quite keeping up. But I think there are kind of little things you can do.
Right.
And having a budget, I think, is one of them. So can you speak to, like, when people come in, what are really some of those first things we look at on their expense worksheet, on the budget, that you've seen that people can kind of adjust or at least need to know about?
Well, obviously, first thing is, do you have credit card debt? If so, get rid of it, right? It's standard operating procedure. You look for credit card debt and you try, because it's not productive debt, it's extremely high interest rates. Cut that out right away. Now, if you're at the point where you're not in credit card debt and you're paying off and you're doing well and you're struggling, then we start getting into because a lot of this then comes down to behavioral choices, life choices, things you do. So one thing is, are you eating out a lot? Do you cut that out? Can you cut out lunches? Try to consolidate. Meal prepping, buying. You can still buy fresh local ingredients. Just focus on sales. Buy in bulk. Buy in. Buy them if you're going to buy in bulk. Only buy them when it's not going to go bad, right? Because there's no point paying. Because there is a slight. You're paying more for bulk, but you're getting a greater value. You're paying less per item, but you are still paying more. So if you're bulking up and you find that you're always throwing out that last bit of asparagus, or like, shoot, I bought a whole 70 pounds of Brussels sprouts and they turned bad. Then you need to adjust based on what you're doing. But you want to be efficient with your money is basically the key. So start looking at other options. One thing I told my wife was when we took a look and we noticed that farro, the grain, it's an ancient Italian grain you can find in Whole Foods. You can feed 6 people, and I can have Alex and Mikey do a test for this because they were 2 of the 6. You can fix 6 people on something like $1 because it's $3 a pound.
Yeah,
and it's very filling.
It's a cheap grain.
So if it matters, so part of it is like focus on things that can fill you up, grocery wise. Take those things into account, and then start asking yourself, okay, am I buying frivolous things? Don't buy things on sale just because they are on sale.
That's
right?
a good temptation.
So use the sales for the stuff that you need. Don't be like, popcorn's on sale. You don't need popcorn. Snacks, if you can't afford it, you just got to let it go by. Just because it's on sale doesn't mean you have to buy it. Things like that. So start adjusting your behavior, because ultimately the budget is your behavior. So keep an eye on it, keep tracking it, and
can I ask a quick question? So how do you balance between, at the same time you have to make some sacrifices, but how do you balance between not sacrificing too much where suddenly your life is becoming dull because every day you're eating chicken and asparagus and rice, rice, because you're like, I feel like I have to save so much money I can't afford anything else.
Well, the first thing is to focus on the things that are the most important. Like, that's part of, we talk about even just people's retirement, like what's important to you, because you can't always have everything. Like we have, just talking about goals, if you have a couple or a family that comes in, it's like, well, Dad wants a boat, Dad wants a beach house when he retires, he wants X, Y, Z, and it turns out that they can't afford it. Now they have to sit back and say, okay, well,
they can't do all of that.
What is the one that you want the most? Focus on that, and then hopefully, if things improve, you'll be able to get the others. So I think part of it is start with a goal mindset and a value mindset. What is the most important to me? So, for instance, everyone knows us. They kind of guess that we're foodie people. So, food is the most important. Like,
you weren't sure we like to eat.
Yeah, I'm willing to pay more for really good quality food because it's important to me. I'm not necessarily going to shell out.
But you might sacrifice a little on maybe recreational things or going
clothing.
out.
Yeah,
or clothing.
I don't need to go and buy a $400 Armani suit, or $1,000 Armani suit. I don't need that.
You don't even go and buy a $100.
No, I mean I don't regularly.
Suit.
I don't regularly buy suits, and I don't wear them as much, but it's also not important to me to have like the best suit in the world of today's fashion. And so like part of it is it's a value thing. You keep an eye on what you value, and if you're still struggling, that's when you can come back to us, and then we'll find ways of working out like, okay, well, then where's the issue? Where's
Yeah.
what's holding you back?
And it's not to diminish the struggle, right? But it's like the inflation. It's not like it's our fault, right, or your fault, or the average person's fault.
It's certainly not our fault.
Is that inflation is as high as it is, right? But unfortunately, we have to contend with the world we're living in. We got to make the adjustments where we can to make things work.
So it's interesting because I don't know if you had seen this article. You might have mentioned it on the show. I don't know. It came out like a month or two ago, but it was talking about inflation. It was from the Wall Street Journal, and it was saying, inflation for breakfast items is very high. So one way you can save, money on breakfast is just to skip breakfast. And I sat there,
it's such a typical Wall Street.
Well,
Journal,
I sit there and I go, that's such like a Stalinistic or Lenin approach to something. It's like the people are starving, like they can't afford the meal. It's like, well, just stop eating and you don't have to pay anything.
Written like someone who's probably not skipping breakfast.
Exactly.
Right. Well, another thing is then tap into your social network and see who that has, like, for instance, does somebody raise chickens? Maybe talked about bartering with them, going back and finding ways to get eggs. I mean, there's things you can do community-wise.
And sometimes the key thing is to make the small adjustments,
right,
so that you can still have a pretty good quality. In other words, all right, I don't really want to skip breakfast, right? But maybe I need to make adjustments somewhere else to be able to still enjoy my bacon and eggs.
Well, right. I mean, if a high protein bacon and eggs breakfast is part of your diet, and your health is more. Let's face it.
That's what I was
about to say. You cannot buy your health. You can't buy your health.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to make sure that, especially, and that's why I guess we talk about food the most when we're talking about budgeting. I mean, that's key. Like, and that includes going to the doctor. I know it's expensive, but like sometimes don't put those. Sometimes don't put those things off. Look at the other frivolous things in your life and one of the first things I would definitely suggest is go find out which streaming services you're subscribed to, and just
and whether you'd be surprised how many people realize
that they're paying. You're paying monthly so that you can go flip between them.
No, but when people actually do the review,
yeah,
they'll be like, "Wait a second, I haven't watched this in 3 weeks,
right?
But I'm paying $7 a month for it."
No, it's probably more.
It's more now.
At this point, Netflix is probably like $13-14.
Yeah.
So
$19.99. Wow.
Yeah. So then if you still want entertainment, because think about it, right? We're talking about whether or not you sacrifice. Rotate between them. Do Netflix for a month and watch what you want to see on Netflix. And then when you're done with Netflix, then you do your, Hulu or whatever. Because part of what it is, if you're signed up to all of them all at once, you're shelling out all at once, but you probably don't have the time to see every show or every movie that every single service is provided. So if you're like, you're flipping through Netflix and you're like, there's nothing left on Netflix for me, switch to another service, see what you want to see on that service, and then keep rotating. This way, you're not necessarily making a sacrifice, you're just becoming more efficient, right? The first step is efficiency. You'd cut out the fat, and you get to the lean dollars that are making the most impact. If you have more money and you want to spend on having, your wife likes Netflix, you like Hulu, and you can afford it, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
It's, but if you're struggling after that, that's the first thing is start cutting dining out, start cutting.
That's what worries me. Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
That's what worries me the most sometimes about when you have these times is I worry that people, the first instinct is to cut out that which they need more than that which they don't need, but they enjoy more. Right. And that's why, when I saw the article, I'm like, that's affecting your health. You're like, I'll just start skipping breakfast. No, you're skipping a meal that you always eat. Like Nikki says, you're better off cutting out Netflix. Sure, you'd be like, but I want Netflix. Yeah, but what's more important, you to eat breakfast or you to watch a show at the end of the day?
You're better cutting off your Wall Street
exactly.
Journal subscription than you are to skipping breakfast. I mean,
I know.
Be real.
And it was funny because it reminded me of a quote I saw the other day, and it said that a healthy man has 100 wishes, a sick man only has one.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. When I read that, I was like, because it was supposed to put in perspective kind of how we're always like, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. But, your health is so important because once you're sick, you only have one wish. It's like, I want to be healthy.
Yeah, right. That's
you cannot sacrifice.
But I think what a lot of the streaming thing also speaks to is you'd be surprised, I think in our experience, how many people don't actually have knowledge of what they spend on a monthly basis. Mm-hmm. They have their credit, they know the total amount. They'll come to us and be like, here's what I'm spending per month. right? And it's their credit card statement that reveals to them how much they're spending per month, but they don't actually know on what.
Right.
At any given moment. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes one of the first things you can do is even just know what you're spending on each item per month. 'Cause I can think of some individuals that they'll come in, right? But yeah, I'm spending this much per month. And then they have an estimate of what they think they're spending dining out, as an example.
Right.
Only to discover that they're spending a lot more than they thought. It wasn't $50 a month, it was $250 a month, right? And so immediately they're able to make judgments. They sit there and say, I really don't want to be spending. It's not even that they have to make a cut that's painful to them. They're like, I really didn't even want to be spending $250 a month. I just lost track of how many times I was going out to eat because I wasn't really paying attention.
Yeah.
So you'd be surprised how sometimes the first thing you should do isn't even to look for something like till you have to cut out or make an adjustment. It's that the inflationary time, sometimes the first thing you should do is just actually take the time to figure out what you actually spend per month on each line item. Because then that helps you to be able to figure out what you can and can't cut. Because in reality, it's going to be you can't cut rent. It's not like you can go to your landlord and say, I'm paying you $2,000 a month. Can we make it $1,900? You know what I mean? I'm going to use my house less.
Well, you can, but they're probably not going to say,
Not
sure,
to say
yeah.
So, I mean, there are certain things that you can't cut. Rent, you know, if you had a mortgage, gas for the most part, if you're driving to work, and, you know, maybe some groceries, right? There's a minimum groceries, right? So there's certain things you can't cut, but it's helpful to know what actually is left that you can. And you may sometimes you may not need to make as much as you think you do. You might be sitting there saying, "Oh no, I have to cut this thing completely out of my budget." But it might just be if you know everything you're doing, you only have to cut $5 from a set of things and not completely cut something else. So you can still find ways to, you know, at least enjoy life even in inflationary times by making a small adjustment, because now you know where everything is, as opposed to just assuming because you have to cut $100 out of your budget a month that it's gonna have to come from food.
Right.
I can't think of where else. Whereas if you actually line item it, you might discover some places where it can come from.
Well, also I was going to say, take advantage of the deals that are out there and available. Like one thing is like if you get fuel points, use your fuel points. Don't let them expire, because they're incentivizing you to spend money at these stores so that you can, you know, take advantage of their deals. Don't be caught with your gas tank somewhere out in like the countryside and having to fill up for 10, 30 cents more than you would if you were able to take advantage of your fuel points. Like, be smart about your gas mileage and make sure that you're, you know, taking efficient routes. You're, you know, just small changes have big impacts. So in reality, for most people, you don't have to do a lot. You just sort of got to look at what you have, be knowledgeable what you have, and cut some of the fat. And you won't be making sacrifices. You'll be cutting things that aren't necessary to your existence to begin with. You're not cutting needs. So like focus on your health, focus on your needs, and then everything else, you know, is stuff that you can start to play with.
Exactly. We got a couple more people, I think.
Rosalia, good morning.
Rosalia watching the show this morning. Elizabeth Miller watching the show this morning. So that
John Blair, thank you for watching.
John Blair, thanks for watching. Oh, you're good when we have you on. That's nice. And when Nick's on, he also keeps track of our great guests. Our great guests. So, and I think when you do that, people will find. I think one of our big questions is, can I even save? Should I even save? Should I even invest in a market like this?
Right.
And I think the troubling part is the answer is you also need to look at savings as a sense that it's got to be something that almost is kind of in that needs category. Because what you're foregoing by not saving is not just the present value of the money, but its future earning potential. You know, so that's the challenging part. Is I think it can be tempting. We see this ourselves, right? It can be tempting to be like, it's so hard to figure out where to get the money to save.
Right.
But the challenge is that it's going to be very painful down the road if you haven't saved.
Right.
But isn't that kind of a balance of how much I'm suffering now versus like, because I mean, maybe it's possible to like, okay, I can't save now, but maybe in 3 years if things get improved, I can save then.
Exactly. Really, that's the balance it comes down to. Because we try to describe it to people is that the balance of saving versus consumption now is, if you think of savings as future consumption, like future spending, and spending as current spending, right? What you're trying to balance is my future spending, the money I will spend in the future versus money I'm spending now. I think if you look at it that way, it can help a little bit to make the adjustment, because then you're sitting there, all right, yeah, I am willing, just basically then you can say, I'm willing to forego some future spending in exchange for some spending now, so that in an inflationary environment, I'm not completely miserable. Right. Or I'm not impacting my health. Yeah. Right.
Well, they go hand in hand too, because just incorporating our budget talk just a minute ago, incorporating your saving into your budget makes you, it forces you to take it out, and you put it up there with your rent. You do it first, and then you find a way with everything else, because you would be amazed how creative you can be with less money. Once you're a smart child.
Well, and it's combating, I think, our own behavioral tendencies. So if you think about it, we have a number of clients who will come in when they're doing the financial plan. When they're saving something automatically, in other words, they've baked it into the budget.
Right.
They don't end up pulling it out. They don't end up using it. Right. It goes straight into their savings, and it just grows. When they put it into their checking first, and then wait to the end of the month to save it, they'll find that they've spent it before the month ends, right? And so you sit there and say, well, clearly, from a budgetary standpoint, you didn't need the $100 as an example, right? A month, every month. Because when you had it automatically going into your savings, you didn't discover that you were suddenly running out of money at the end of the month. But when it went into your checking, you found a way to, and I think it's our behavioral thing when we see it because I think that all of our minds kind of split, even though money is fungible, it's the same money regardless of what account it's in, right? Our minds split it up.
Yeah.
It's hard, I think it's part of the way the human brain works. They've discovered behaviorally, we have kind of like tranches of how we organize things in our minds.
Right.
And we do split money for the future and money now. And money in a checking account, our mind tends to think of as money now. So we'll find a way to spend the money if it's there in checking.
Yeah.
And so sometimes what we have to do is to defeat to be victorious in a sense over our own behavioral tendencies. We have to kind of trick our mind into thinking the money's not there. And so if you put the 100 into your budget of savings and you have it automatically go to savings, you'll discover sometimes that, oh my goodness, I didn't actually need that. That was an amount I thought I needed, but I didn't. And we've had this literally happen, because we don't mean to diminish people's struggles in an inflationary time. We have literally had this to people who come in even now, that they have discovered that when they put something automatically into savings, they didn't actually need it.
Yeah.
Even in an inflationary environment, because the mind will find ways to spend money that it thinks is in the spend now bucket.
Well, didn't that happen with one of the relief checks they sent out for COVID? Like, they were like, instead of kind of saving it, which kind of people probably should have done, they ended up spending a bunch on Amazon. Was that the first one? I'm talking about early in the pandemic.
I think it was the first one.
Yeah, like instead of like, because I remember there was a lot of people that we knew that kind of like fell into that same trap. They got the money, and instead of kind of being like, you know what, let me save it for when, they're like, oh God, I just got $1,200. I went on Amazon and I bought a bunch of stuff. It's like, that's not like stuff, especially things that we didn't need.
Yeah, ironically, that's what the government wanted them to do to boost it.
I know. Well, it certainly boosted Amazon's stock.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah, it wasn't until the second or third relief checks that people started saving the funds, and those, of course, have been drained again.
And yeah, I was about to say, I think you and I talked about like maybe 3-4 weeks ago that it was an article, and we saw that
it's all gone.
Yeah, it's like their savings that everyone was happy because like a year or a year and a half ago, savings had spiked, and they looked like they were saved well for retirement in their future, and now all their savings are gone.
Yeah, Fidelity, it's one of the lowest readings they've had since 2006, I think, that in terms of the number of people who have enough now to be saved in retirement. I think part of that is because if your 401k declined over the past 2 years, obviously that reduces the amount you have. But also, I think even among younger people, the savings that they had been done to accumulate are now done because of the environment.
So, can I ask a question for Nicholas? Because I saw an article about different ways to save, and one of them was kind of a little strange. I was curious whether you ever recommend this for people. It said energy. It says, well, lower your thermostat. Maybe you're spending too much on heat or too much on air conditioning, so you could lower that. And I'm curious, have you ever recommended that to someone? Because that seems a little strange. Because again, that seems like sort of like, well, I want to stay cool in the summer, but maybe I don't want to spend too much on my air conditioner, so I'm raising my heat. So now I'm kind of hot, but now I'm suffering because of saving money. Is that a recommendation you've ever seen? Like if someone's like, I'm spending this much on. Energy.
I have seen it. I have never ever recommended somebody drop their thermostat, and part of the reason why is what we talked about before, where your health is important. So one thing, especially about thermostats, is you sleep better when it's cooler. So I'm not going to tell somebody to start messing with their sleep cycle, which could affect their work performance, which could affect, and if they're an entrepreneur, they're entirely reliant on their own efforts, they can't afford to be losing sleep. So the problem with things like thermostat is you don't realize how deeply it affects your health.
Yeah.
There's enough wasteful spending in our lives that I don't immediately think that the first thing any financial planner should do is say, yeah, you're spending your thermostat's the problem. There's probably a Netflix.
Yeah, we usually have found enough things that we don't even need to get to.
Yes,
that.
I mean, even dining out, I would rather, and as much as I love the local restaurants are the best in the country is Charlottesville, but I think it would be more important for someone not to go out to eat than it would be for them to be dropping thermostats to. Listen, if it's a point or two, if you're like, hey, I could probably save 50 points, does it really matter 73 to 72? Maybe not. But if you're talking to the point where I'm letting it during the summer, leave it at 80, it's not a big deal, and you're not sleeping at night, that is a big deal.
Yeah.
So can I ask a question though, just to play devil's advocate? Because isn't it true as energy prices are the ones that have skyrocketed during inflation? So couldn't you just say, well, but that's where you could save the most money because that's
it's
where
more impactful.
Yeah, it's more impactful inflation there. I could just try to cut that out.
That's a personal decision. You have to talk with the client, right? Because that's at the point at which you're like, okay, if you don't mind, if you can sleep perfectly fine at any temperature, or you're comfortable at any temperature, or part of it is it takes a lot of energy to raise it during. So one of the things we've heard is don't lower your air condition when you're gone and then have it jack up when you come home. It turns out it takes up more energy to do that than just to leave it at a consistent temperature. So don't try to save money like that.
You have huge swings, then you might actually be losing money
because your machine has to get up the energy to start returning your entire house to a different keep it steady, keep it consistent, keep it at a temperature at a comfortable zone. But the whole point is it's also it's your life. If you have to pay for it, you have to pay for it in a sense. I mean, that's the whole point is you don't want to mess with your health. You don't want to mess with your children's health. That's something that you can do. You can do it a little bit. I wouldn't recommend you do it if you're keeping your house at 62 during the summer, the heat of summer. Then it's
you can probably make some adjustments.
Yeah, you can cut it and be you don't have to be having it, freezing cold in your house. Try to live in a normal range. But. Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that you could take a look at is it worth, especially if you're a homeowner that has plenty of sunlight, is it worth me switching to something like solar, where I can create my own energy over the long term? It might be more beneficial for you financially. There's alternatives that you can use without you having to be I'm going to be personally miserable during the summer and winter because I need to save money.
Winter in particular, I'm remembering back to when Miguel and Carolina from Product Series Insurance were on, how many times people will try to save money in the winter because they'll turn off the heat when they go away and come back to find pipes burst, that you've caused more damage to your house by trying to save money for a week than you would have done had you done nothing.
That's very foolish though to try that.
Heat too, heat can make you spoil food faster. If you have something on your counter and you all of a sudden you create gnats, fruit flies, and your food is spoiling. Now you're going from you're saving money here, but you're wasting money somewhere else.
Yeah, I could sympathize with someone trying to be like, okay, I'm going away for the week, so I'll lower my heat thing so that it's instead of keeping the house warm at like 69, we'll go like 64. But turn it off during the winter.
Yeah,
It's not.
It's a risk you didn't. That's why Medell was like,
Yeah.
don't take
Now,
that
see,
risk.
that makes sense. If you're going away for 2 weeks, then you can consider dropping it. What you don't want is massive fluctuations in temperature daily, because the machines, it takes a lot to get them going, and sometimes you are worse off doing that. So, I mean, the answer is it's possible you can do it a couple points in either direction, but
I know some people who do it.
Yeah, if it's gonna affect your sleep or your health or your food safety, like there's plenty for the average American. There's plenty of things they can do that are better options than resorting right away to your thermostat. I think part of it we always hear about, again, the things. The Wall Street Post isn't going to necessarily get the Wall Street Journal isn't necessarily going to get in trouble with Netflix. They'd rather get in trouble with the local farmer that makes eggs, right? So they're not going to say, yeah, cut Netflix right away. That's going to be the last thing they recommend. So,
Johnny Ornelas, amigo del programa, liking and sharing the show today. Gracias, Johnny. He's a great. If you are to go out to eat, be sure to visit Johnny at
El Mariachi.
Guadalajara or El Mariachi
Yeah.
at Zion's Crossroads. If you are going to do that, that's
and you
the
get your
place.
car washed on the way out and come back.
There you go.
Forgive me, but isn't there? Was it Burger Week this week at Siva? There was something going on.
Yeah,
like
this is Burger Week.
This is Burger Week.
This is Burger
This is
Week.
Burger
What is
Week.
Burger Week? Because I have no idea what that
So
is.
Burger Week,
$8 burgers.
numerous participating restaurants have like an $8 burger instead of whatever the normal price
Oh, okay.
would be. Like a specialty burger. Wajitos has one that I don't know if I'm gonna make it in time, but it's like an aioli burger with what was it? Caramelized onions and some and it's got their fried cheese.
Oh, the queso frito,
on top of the burger. I was
When does it end, Burger Week?
I don't know.
It ends this week. Yeah, you better go.
Well, I know this week. I was asking when. Yeah,
It's either today or tomorrow.
23rd.
Oh, okay, we have 3
we have
days.
some more time.
Oh, okay. Was it Sunday?
It's Sunday.
Okay, we got
Oh, there is hope. Thank you, Judah.
Yeah.
a guava burger.
too.
Oh man, Pops is gonna be so upset.
I know,
He missed
he's
The
that.
voice
I
of
know.
God came in and told us that there's a guava burger at Burritos.
Well, that must
Harvey,
be
if
good.
you're watching, we're coming.
Absolutely. So, trying to continue in on this vein, I think one of the things also I think people should know about is we touched on it at the beginning. And one of the first things was credit card debt.
Right.
And this came up a little bit. I went to a financial empowerment conference. Tom Festival was holding a discussion. And just the different types of debt. That not all debt's the same.
Right.
And we'll get both variations. Like people want to be debt-free, or people who are like, should I pay off my mortgage or my car loan first and leave my credit card, and so forth. But really, there's different types of debt that people need to be looking at.
Well, we touched a little bit on that at the beginning because we said credit card debt you get rid of right away.
Yep.
That's you want to wipe out debt that's not productive. And listen, there's different theories about that too. But I think one thing you can sit back and look at is, am I gaining something with the debt, or is the debt just compensating for my poor behavior? So start with that and then move from there, because that'll kind of reveal to you, like credit card debt. It's probably, especially a lot of it comes from just people, you have the money and you're not paying it off in
You'd be
time.
surprised. I mean, granted, there's people that they're in really rough times. They literally just, they're living off credit card debt because they have no other funds. But you'd be surprised how often, not only do people come in where they have the funds to pay off the credit card debt, but I've even heard advice given. Like I was at a marriage retreat thing, and I kid you not, the marriage retreat has like this young couple saying, when you want to, we talk about finances and marriage, says finances is one of the number one reasons apparently that marriages fail. Like,
Oh, interesting.
Great over financial arguments, right? And they were talking about this, and I kid you not, the marriage retreat video has this couple of them, the best thing to do is just start with whichever debt is the smallest amount, right? Because then when you pay it off, you're going to feel really good, and then you're going to feel like you can tackle the next one. and I sat there and I felt like just jumping
You
up.
should have really.
I should have jumped. Well, there were like 50, 60 people in the room. I told it to my table, but I almost felt like jumping up in the whole conference room. Do not do what that video just said, because it's not the dollar amount of the debt. It's the interest rate on the debt. You should pay off whichever debt. So if you're sitting there, say, with a $600 car loan at 3%, that you're paying 3% interest on, and $2,000 of credit card debt with a 16% interest rate, right?
20% is that.
And let's say you can only pay off, it's almost 20 now,
It's
right?
22% average.
22%
No,
average
yeah, so
interest
it's
rate, right?
more, yeah.
And that thing's compounded, I think, at least monthly. So it's not like 22%, it's 22% divided by 12, but then that interest begins to compound, and that interest begins to compound.
Yeah.
And so then before you know it, you're paying 22% on interest that you owe and the original credit card debt, right? So if you're sitting there with $600 in car debt at 3%, and $2,000, or even let's say $10,000 of credit card debt, right? And you only have $600 to pay off one of them. It doesn't matter that you can't get rid of all the credit card debt. Pay down $600 of the credit card debt. Don't sit there and say, well, I'm going to feel great if I just get this car loan off my books and it's going to give me momentum. No. Pay down the bad debt before you pay down the other one. If you are sitting there, this happens a lot. Well, there are people that come in, they're sitting there with like, $2,000, $3,000 rolling credit card debt. So it's not a crazy amount, right? They're paying $400 a month extra towards their mortgage. This way it can be paid off earlier. I'm like, no. I don't care that you feel you have the satisfaction of the mortgage being paid off earlier, and it looks like, oh man, I really want to get this mortgage out of the way. Pay down the credit card debt with that $400 a month because it's the bigger interest rate.
Right.
And it's just so important to keep that in mind, that not all debt is the same. In fact, mortgages may not even be unproductive debt.
Well, they're not. You're buying a house, and
Yeah.
you own the house, and as long as you can afford it, right? This is why I talk to competent, mortgage lenders and realtors and us, financial advisors. Come to us. Because we'll work through you on all these things. But like part of it is you're buying a house. Most people don't have $700,000 waiting to buy a house like you had to years and years and years ago. Now you can borrow it from a bank and buy the house.
And as Xavier
pay it
always
off.
says,
Yeah.
it's the only thing that a mortgage is essentially the only loan that a bank will give you at rates that low.
Right.
In other words, if you have paid off your mortgage and then you need to borrow money from the bank or from a credit card or for anything, you're going to get hammered with a much higher, if the bank even lends to you at all. Right. But a mortgage is going to be the lowest rate you're ever going to get for something for that amount of money that you're borrowing.
Because you need a house, and everyone pays it off. And most people pay it off first, which is the proper way to do it, right? Right out of the budget, you put your mortgage, you put your saving for retirement, and then you take care of everything else. But again, it's like you said, you got to make smart choices and tackle the hard thing. You want to tackle the beast. Don't let the beast keep growing while you finish
Take
off
the
the
small
small fry. Yeah,
Exactly.
And that would be like if we were going to use since Lord of the Rings last week. We were at, what was it last week?
I think it was last week, yeah. So they had this year is the 20th anniversary of Lord of the Rings, Return of the Kings, and the Yerby brothers are huge, enormous fans of Lord of the Rings. And we weren't going to miss the opportunity that in Regal Cinema they had a re-showing of the Return of the King extended edition.
The only
so,
one.
yeah, we went there at the 7 o'clock show, and I think it was last Thursday. That's a week from today.
And Regal, I think I heard the movie theaters made more money from that than some of the movies that came out new. It was huge. But to go back to the original point, it would be like trying to kill every orc before you tackle Sauron. Right? Exactly. No, you got to get rid. You take that ring, you throw it in Mount Doom. The orcs will take care of themselves.
I put all my effort to take out this orc because,
Yeah, don't be like, woo, I got one orc. It doesn't work that way because, the Sauron's waiting to return, and that's not what you want. You take that, and it goes to, symbolically, a little bit of effort, a little bit of coin.
Little by little, you
can wipe out a big debt,
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. Elizabeth Earpy, watching the show this morning.
Oh, she's watching because her hubby's on.
It's true.
Rosalia Tordaro from Miami is watching us. So she's all the way in Miami. She says she's glad that she and her family invest for a future to be okay with, thanks to us. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Rosalia, she says they're going to be okay after retirement, and she always recommends to the younger ones to do
invest,
that.
which is important because if you invest early, you don't have to invest even as much to be more secure than if you try to invest later. Don't put it off. Like, it's one of the few things in life where time is on your side. It is the only, in fact, entering this wonderful life, time is not on your side because eventually your time runs out. It's the only thing you can do where time is on your side.
Yeah, pretty much.
You put money down, the time is on your side. It will grow over time.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing else you do, everything decays except your 401k. That grows. Like that's
and the key thing is with that, I think, especially in this environment, you cannot be nervous because we've had 2 rough market years, right? You cannot be nervous about the month-to-month fluctuations of investments. You can't be looking at the market month-to-month and saying, I can't invest because it's so volatile. Because in reality, let's put it this way. Think about it. If you bought a house in 2005, 30-year mortgage, right? By now, that house is worth more than it was in 2005. Right? There was a point, if you were checking that house price every year, that you're sitting there in 2008 saying, this is a disaster, I should pull all my money out of this house, I've lost 10, 20, 30%. But in reality, nobody goes and checks who logs onto Zillow every day and sees if the price of your home has changed since yesterday?
some people do.
All right, but they shouldn't be doing that. Right?
Yeah,
if they did, they'd panic.
They do, yeah.
Right? Because they'd be like, oh no, my house lost $10,000 of value today. Oh, good, my house is up $20,000 today. Oh no, my house. Zillow probably doesn't even update it.
Yeah, does that even actually
right?
happen?
But imagine if Zillow updated.
I don't know if it's daily, yeah.
Imagine if Zillow updated your home price daily. That thing's
Not even like daily, like by the
hourly.
second,
Yeah.
yeah.
That thing's gonna be going like this in massive swing because like house sold here. Yeah. Oh, that one came in a little under. Right? That thing's going to be all over the place over a course of 10 years, but nobody cares because you know that over the long term it's going to be higher than when you bought it.
And because you're not intending to sell your house, so
Because
you're not worried about it.
To sell it.
And keep the same
You
mindset.
need to look at the same mindset with your savings. Like if you are looking at a 10 to 20 to 30 year horizon for your savings, as it's your retirement savings, do not be panicking about that thing after 2 days and pulling your money out because you're down 10%.
Yeah.
Because all you're doing is locking in losses all the time. So you need to have that kind of similar mindset and not be looking at the market and being like, I can't save because the market's volatile.
Yeah.
It's the wrong way to look at it. So that would probably be my last.
I think we covered 3 important topics.
We covered 3 important topics. And we actually got all our topics in. That
we got all our topics.
Planned, and there's so much
I was
to talk
like,
about.
there's nothing else.
Yeah, we covered all our topics in a beautiful amount of time.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful amount of time. Really appreciate everyone who commented today. Nick, tell us who next week, who can we expect on Today
I
Manana?
have the list. Next week we have Alyssa Corbin, owner and artist at the Glitter Bee Company.
Ooh, the Glitter Bee.
We have Michael Sloan and Christine Fairchild from the Oratorio Society.
Oh,
they have an
wonderful.
upcoming concert. We're going to learn a little bit more about them.
Their all-night vigil last year was beautiful.
The Rachmaninoff.
The Rachmaninoff.
Actually,
vigil
I'd
from the
met
Oratorios.
him at the release of the Charlottesville Opera, and he told me that was one of his favorite things that he's done. He really enjoyed doing that.
Yeah,
and,
he does a great job with the University Singers and with Oratorio Society.
Yeah, and actually last year he had conducted the Sound of Music for the Charlottesville Opera.
Oh,
this year he still works with the chorus, which is why Leanne was telling us a couple weeks ago that they're able to do these different operas like Tosca, where there's a big choral part, because Michael Sloan has been really helping them out with that. So big shout out to him. He'll be here next week. So
awesome.
Get your questions ready. And then last but not least, Charlie Rogers from ISS CSP.
Yeah, Charlie is a great man. He's a local businessman. Also, he's the board chair for Charlottesville Scholarship Program. So he's going to talk a little bit about that, just what the experience has been, really helping these scholars and being a navigator for the Charlottesville Scholarship Program, which is like a mentor to the kids, which is something all of you in the community should think about doing, because it's not hard at all. And Charlie will talk a little bit about that as well. So he's a great guy. and he'll be coming on.
So tune in next week for that. But if you aren't able to tune in that, then at least go check out our interview. I think it was last year with Stephanie Leach that had talked very in depth about the program.
The Starship program,
Yeah.
exactly.
But tune in next week if you can.
Oh, absolutely! You should totally be joining us. We got before we go. This is a good way to end it. Kevin Higgins, watching the show this morning, thank you. Is a fun little ending question. Nicholas, if you started an ETF with Italian dishes, what would your top 3 picks be? Your top 3 Italian dishes.
Best question we've had on the show.
It's a fun little closing question.
Top 3 Italian dishes.
Better choose wisely.
Oh shoot! Because part of the problem is like I'm thinking street food. Do desserts count? Oh, that's a different question.
Stick with just just food.
Yeah, no
food.
desserts.
I already pretty much have like 2 out of 3 right at the top
Yeah,
of my
I
head.
think I got my 3.
I mean, part of it, I'm gonna go back. Like, as much as I loved my time in Italy, my mother's dishes just remind me of just the family. So I would probably say my number 1 favorite would have to be the pasta broccoli reminata. For those of you who are not familiar, it is
Pasta with cauliflower, pine
so
nuts,
it is it's a
raisins.
Sicilian dish with pine nuts, raisins, saffron, and cauliflower, and bucatini. So that's a thicker spaghetti. That would be on my number 1. It's my favorite. Number 2, probably a lasagna. I would have to say, like a real top-notch lasagna. Number 3, I'm struggling with because there's a lot of good ones out there.
It's gotta be rice balls. Come on.
But was it a pasta dish or is it Italian dishes?
Italian.
Oh, yeah, rice balls. Yeah, it's got to be rice balls.
What do you got?
I was doing lasagna, rice balls, and for me, I would just take even just like a simple ragu, but kind of more of just like sometimes our mom would make, even our nonna would do it, just pasta, the penne with tomato sauce, ricotta, and just like a couple meatballs.
then
Done.
Sometimes you can't beat that.
Yeah, you just can't beat
I mean,
that.
the problem is it also depends what you feel like today. It's true that
yeah.
So for those of you not familiar, Kevin, like arancini is what we're talking about. The rice balls, you'll see them. They're just like
ball of
big-
rice with
a
chopped
ball
meat
of rice.
inside,
Yeah,
which you fry.
yeah, deep
Bread and
fried. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with Mikey. Lasagna, rice balls, and either the ragu or gratin.
See, when I was a
Grotto's,
kid,
yeah, that's also good.
when I was
Potato casserole
when
thing.
I was a kid, the grotto was my favorite. It was basically, for those of you who don't know, it's like
Mashed
lasagna.
Italian, it's basically Italian shepherd pie.
It's a lasagna.
That's what I call it.
Well, it's like a lasagna with potatoes.
Yeah,
with mashed
essentially.
potatoes. Yeah.
Kevin Higgins, his 3. He's a simple man. He said
Okay.
his 3 would be spaghetti and meatballs.
That's a good one. No, all 3 is spaghetti
Yeah.
meatballs. But I mean,
Excellent choice. It's
You
hard to
can't
go wrong.
You
It's
can't.
hard to
You
go
can't
wrong.
go wrong.
With simple pasta with tomato sauce ricotta. I like my ricotta.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
And homemade.
And Alex and I
meatballs.
are always the same. We'd mix a lot of the ricotta in with the tomato sauce, but then
just
we'd have
leave
a
it
nice
dollop.
drop.
That is
dollop.
save us
On the
food.
side, yeah.
Save us
Especially
food.
if you get a good quality ricotta, yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
Great closing question.
That's the best
Appreciate
question.
It. Thanks for watching
Yeah.
the show this morning. So this has been a great show. Thanks
Mm-hmm.
for coming on and joining us, talking some finance, talking some Days of Rose, talking some 231 Fest on June 10th. Be sure to check that out. Big thank you, of course, to all our partners, our great partners. So Castle Hill Cider, Credit Serious Insurance, Matias Young Realty, Forward Adelante, of course, our presenter, Emergent Financial Services, the I Love Seaville Network set. Michael, thank you for
thank
co-hosting
you.
with me.
It was wonderful. I had a great time.
Always appreciate it. Nick, thanks for being a fantastic guest. Judah,
you
thanks
for
for
having
looking up Seaville.
Getting us
Burger
all
Week
hungry
for us.
with the
Getting us
guava
hungry with
burger.
the guava burger. Thank you, Jerry, for reminding us that Netflix is now 20.
$20.
He's there with the financial stats. And just appreciate all of you for the great questions. Kevin, Rosalia, thank you for commenting. Love all of you who watch the show. Be sure to check us out next week for some more fantastic guests. Until that time, as we like to close it out on the show, hasta mañana.
That was fun.
That was good.
Yeah, it was very fun.